Sean,
Hey,
your response to that?
DC's been lying to you guys for a long time now.
I'm lying.
Hey, listen.
I'm lying.
DC told you guys, and I quote, I'll take John Jones down 10 times out of 10 times if I want to take him down.
I said 100.
Right?
Don't quote wrong.
So far, we're 5-0.
You
Me.
didn't take me down 5 times.
I've taken you down 5
You
times.
took me down 3 times.
I've taken. Listen, last time I foot swept you, held my hand on your hand like you're my bitch.
Hey, what about when I threw your punk ass down? Hey, John, that is your highlight. I slipped at the end of the round.
Hey, and this guy's supposed to be the Olympian.
What's going on, good people? This is the Common Man, Nate Lewis, back with a brand new edition of the Common Take. Back after a much too long hiatus, and for that I do apologize, but I am back, and today I'm just going to bring you a very quick edition of the Common Take, because there's just so much that I've missed over the past couple of weeks. There's no possible way I can even do a show where I talk and discuss about everything. But I'm going to do real quick. Let's just run over a couple things. WrestleMania, it was okay. Women's triple threat match, best match on the show. Very saddened to hear the news about China and her recent passing. Despite what opinions you may have of her as a person over the last couple of years and some of the things that she has been involved with in terms of the porn industry in the last few years, she was a huge part of the Attitude Era for the WWE, a huge cultural presence around that time as well. And anytime someone within the pro wrestling community passes, is a very tragic story. And my condolences goes out to China and her family during this time. It's very, very sad to see her go. UFC has had a couple of fight nights and a pay-per-view from this past Saturday, basically the John Jones Olin St. Preux pay-per-view event. That pay-per-view, UFC 197, has been the first pay-per-view since I believe it would have been UFC 172 as the last time I hadn't ordered and watched a full UFC pay-per-view. There's a lot that went into my decision not to at least go back and watch the show later, which I've had to do on several occasions. That show just did not scream, spend money on me, watch me. So I did not, but I did get to see the main event. I did get to see my girl Carla Esparza make her return to the Octagon after being out for so long. And from what I've seen in the show, I found it to be underwhelming, as did most people who got to see John Jones make his return. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that one. What I really wanted to focus on today, and the reason for this podcast, is to go over two things, basically. Number one, obviously the show will be run a lot more frequently. There's been some changes with me on a professional level, and what's going on here in the privacy in my own home. So I should have that sorted out here in the next few days. I'll have a better idea, and I will come back and do a show at that time. We will have a new format to the show. There will be a weekly show. I should say there'll be 2 to 3 weekly shows that will be out on a regular schedule. That's the best I can give you guys at the time, and I do apologize. But once it's time to settle in, I'll have a more regular schedule that will follow, and that news will be brought to you. That also ties in with the website, thecommonmanpodcast.com. There are going to be not so much changes, but there will be a weekly recap of all things MMA and a weekly recap of all things professional wrestling that will be out. Right now I'm looking at Wednesday and Sunday for those two articles to be out, along with, your regular news updates. All that will be taking place here in the next couple of days as well. So just stay patient with me as I get all this together. For the most part, even though I've had guests on the show, this is kind of a one-man show, so I do apologize. Kind of feel like I'm Tommy Toehold. If you're a fan of Tommy Toehold's show, it's just him running it, and there'll be times where he doesn't update it as often as he wants. Hey, same here, guys. I do apologize, but I am back. Now, the main purpose of this edition is I wanted to discuss the whole Conor McGregor versus UFC war that we're on right now. Now, for those, if you're listening to this podcast, you pretty much know what's going on. But just as a quick recap, Conor McGregor sent out a tweet a few days ago stating that he was retiring. Thanks for the cheese. Catch you later. And the entire social media atmosphere just completely lost their shit. Things were speculated as to why he was retiring. Was he scared to fight Nate Diaz at UFC 200? Was there an injury? Was a recent passing at a MMA event? I believe it was over in Ireland. Was that affecting him? What is going on? And UFC kind of took a little bit of time and left that in the air before finally announcing that Conor was not wanting to participate in media obligations, which led to even more speculation. Okay, there's got to be something else to this. Maybe there's a money issue. Maybe Conor's wanting more money. There's got to be something that isn't being told here. That was followed by a Conor McGregor Facebook post, which pretty much all but stated, hey, no, the media obligations was 100% the reason. And we've gone back and forth. As of right now, and as Dana has stated, over 2 press conferences, and they've done 2 huge press conferences in less than a week, which is crazy. Conor is off the show. He wanted to find a replacement fight for Nate Diaz. Nate has, at the press conference, said, I don't want to fight anybody but Conor. If I'm not fighting Conor, I'm not on the show. I'm going on vacation. And that appears to be what is going on. So Conor's off the show. Nate's off the show. And we learned yesterday that Jon Jones will be facing, let me get the titles right. The interim light heavyweight champion, Jon Jones, is fighting current UFC light heavyweight champion, Daniel Cormier, at UFC 200 in the main event. Got all that? Good. Let's take some steps backwards here. So, if you're a hardcore MMA fan, one of the major complaints that I've noticed since I've kind of transitioned from being a casual fan to someone who's more everything about anything about MMA is fighter pay has always been a source of contention when it comes to how much fighters are getting paid. So when the Reebok deal happens and fighters are losing a substantial revenue source for them, fighter pay even became more of a talking point and more of a discussion. So when news first broke about Conor retiring, there were rumors floating around that Conor was wanting $10 million for his next fight. After his previous fight at UFC 186, he was guaranteed a $1 million guaranteed purse, which was a first in first in UFC, I should say. So there was speculation, hey, Conor's wanting more money, and there were people on kind of both sides of that coin. People were saying, hey, this guy is bringing you huge gate numbers, huge pay-per-view numbers. This guy is worth $10 million. And there was people on the other side of the coin going, look, you can't cave into someone just for money issues after a contract's been signed. And the contract situation is something I'm going to get back to here in a minute because it plays a major pivotal role in how I personally feel about this situation. But you have both sides of that going on. And as this thing is kind of rolled out and Conor has stated that he wanted not to have to attend all these media obligations, including not just the press conferences that we see on UFC TV or YouTube or however you view these press conferences. He didn't want to have to do the media rounds and small morning shows, and there was a Good Morning America. But he was not wanting to do all that. He felt he needed to take his time to get back in the gym and focus on a fight that I shouldn't say apparently. He's obsessed with this fight with Nate, and he really wanted to take the time to not break his camp. He's over in Iceland. He didn't want to have to fly in and do all these media obligations. And when that kind of came to the limelight as being the major focal point and why Conor was not on the show, it got a really, what I thought, weird reaction. I thought most of the MMA community would kind of go, you know what? this guy signed a contract, but he's not wanting to do all the media. This guy's he's wanting to train. He's wanting to get back in the gym, and they're forcing his hand to do these media obligations. How are they going to pull this guy from the show? He's money. He doesn't need to promote his fights. He can do it from the privacy of his own home. And there are some people who, and I will say this, I'm kind of in this train of thought too. If you want Conor to do all those media obligations, this is 2016. There are so many different ways to have Conor make an appearance at some place without actually being at that place. So why does it have to be he has to physically be here in order to do a media appearance? Because to me, that's not the case. And so you have both sides of those coins. And now we've gotten to the point now where we have a new fight announced in DC and Jones. And I'm seeing a lot of people just, Conor's a prima donna. Conor was trying to show he's bigger than the sport. Conor's doing this. I'm so glad UFC. Let me take that back. I am so glad Dana White took him off the show. And for those listening and don't get this, let me say this very loud and clear. I'm saying this from information that was provided by Dave Meltzer at Wrestling Observer. Dave is an amazing MMA journalist. From Dave's mouth, the decision to pull Conor off UFC 200 was not Dana White's decision. This is a Lorenzo Fertitta decision. Now, I know sometimes I have novice fans here. For those who don't know who Lorenzo Fertitta is, Lorenzo and his brother, Frank Fertitta, actually own the UFC, while Dana White is the president of the UFC. For those who do know who Lorenzo is, I'm telling you now, all the stuff I'm seeing about Dana White this, Dana White that, look, I get Dana's the spokesperson, but when Dana's standing up on that microphone, he is just the messenger. So let's lay off Dana White. So let's just go back to saying UFC has pulled Conor off this card, not Dana White has pulled Conor off this card. For whatever reason, that kind of really bothers me. So I just wanted to put that out there. So it's this weird backlash that Conor seems to be getting, and I'm not fully understanding it. In my personal opinion, if I'm UFC and I said, hey, you want this fight with Nate? We're going to give you this fight with Nate. It's going to happen at UFC 200. Here's how much we're paying you, and then this is what we're doing in terms of promotion. If Conor signed that contract, Conor's ass needs to be wherever they told him to be. If Conor, at that point, before he signed that contract, before the dollar signs were on the contract, if Conor wanted to come out and say, hey, you know what? I get this you guys are putting this on a big show for me. I'm going to make a shit ton of money. I'm going to make you guys a shit ton of money. I don't want to be out promoting this as heavily as I have for 196 or for UFC 189. Both those pay-per-views made you a lot of money. I did a lot of promotions for those. I went all over promoting 189. I did everything. I was on CNBC for 196. I've done tons of promotion for you guys, but I really want to focus on my training here. I will do X, Y, and Z, whenever you guys want that done, and then I will do all this fight week. But I do not want to do all the promotion I've done before. That should have been done and discussed before the contract was signed. But the contract signed, hey, Conor, I get it. You want to stay back, you want to train, but you signed a contract. You have to appear. That is your main obligation. Now, you might want to argue that. You might want to negotiate at that point, and that's completely fine. But you made an obligation when you signed that contract to make these public appearances. So you got to be there. Now, where I fault UFC on this is you got a guy who is your biggest draw now. You no longer have Ronda at the moment. Ronda's your other big draw. So she's not there right now. So Conor's your big draw. If Conor's coming to you and saying, hey, I'm not flying out here for this, I understand that UFC offered private jets to help move his whole camp there. I get that. Once that falls short, like I said earlier, it's 2016. Skype. You flew a camera crew out for Daniel Cormier's, I believe it's his son's recital, and streamed it there. Why aren't you flying a camera crew out there and going, hey, okay, You don't want to show up here, that's fine. But we need you for the press conference. We need you for Good Morning. We need you for these things. We'll fly a camera crew out there. You be accessible at this time. And if they did offer that to Conor and Conor still said no, then I'm 100% behind UFC in that regard. But for some, I have the impression that they offered everything to personally get Conor there, and Conor just didn't want to do that. And so UFC decided to pull. That's how I think it went down. Now, if it comes out later, like I said, that they offered to do other memes of having him appear at these media obligations and Conor said no, then this is all on Conor. I'm sorry. Now, another source of contention I have with the UFC is the fact that you have a signed contract for this fight. As a promoter, you have the right to then pull that fight. But as far as I know, Conor still signed a contract to fight Nate Diaz. And Dana White, the face of UFC, during a presser says Conor's next fight will be the winner of Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar. So what about Nate in this situation? Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, well, he's pulling this fight because he needs to actually go and defend his featherweight title. And I completely agree with that. When they announced that we were getting this fight with Nate and Conor first before he has to fight, who I thought Frankie should have just flat out gotten the fight, I was pretty pissed off about it. But now he has that contract. He signed a contract to fight Nate Diaz. And I'm a Nate Diaz fan. Nate Diaz got a lot of money main event and fighting Conor. Well deserved. And he went out there and he did what he had to do and he won the fight. So now he has a new contract. He was promised he's going to fight on the biggest show of all time and main event against Conor and have a chance to earn a second big check. So now you pull that fight out, which I get that you're doing this to punish Conor. Hey, you didn't show up. You don't get the fight. And you were trying to make it right by offering Nate another fight. However, that fight with Nate, you then stated wouldn't be the main event. Nate knows this. Nate's not going to take a fight third or fourth from the top on a pay-per-view that's going to earn less because his original opponent's not on the card. So now you're saying, hey, this fight is off. If I'm Nate Diaz and me being a Nate Diaz fan, okay, cool. We can do that at 201, 202, 203, whatever. As long as I fight Conor. As long as I can get that bread that you guys were stating I was going to get by fighting Conor. Instead, you're having Conor go and fight and defend his featherweight title when I signed a contract to fight Conor. And now I'm out on a big